Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to GeekWatch, a subsidiary of the monastery, the open bar of the internet. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have two good brothers and one good sister. Ha 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 ha. We have...
Nice to see you, everyone.
We have one half of the Valley of the Judged on Thursday nights. Good brother Monarch.
Feels like ages since I've been here last.
Oh yeah, since the last time you were on, you were still having your running bet with the Grim Reaper.
I won.
Jeez, it's like you're trying to be our equivalent of Tom Cruise or something sometimes. Just get hit by lightning, and then a week later you text me saying I lived, bitch. But in the other corner we have our Friday representative of the Valley of the Judged, who is probably going to fail to stop me conveniently at making a bunch of Charlton Heston jokes next Friday. Good brother Xanatrix, the man of 1,000 runes, the CEO of Zadaria Enterprises, and the bane of my fucking existence.
He's contractually obligated to say that these days. We don't pay him. It's just we have him in perpetuity at this point. Regardless, Zadaria Enterprises would like to remind you that Charlton Heston jokes are completely fine when talking about apes together strong.
Bane? CIA.
You're a big guy for you. God damn it.
I would like to remind certain people that October 10th is National Throw Short People Day.
Throw her my way. I'll be sure to catch her.
Oh. Well, I need an excuse to break out the arbalest. But of course, making her grand return to the temple, our resident demon mommy, good sister Riona.
Good evening, all glad to be here.
So, originally the plan that I had this week was the Amalgam anime that I've been kicking down the road multiple times over the last year. The reason why I didn't do it this time is because I felt the energies just weren't quite there yet, weren't quite aligned the way I wanted it to. And I feel like that thing needs a bit of prep time to get a list together to explore each of the concepts. So it's gonna be a while before the Amalgam anime project gets done, and well, to some that is one of the most cursed ideas I've ever had for GeekWatch. I believe I am capable of coming up with far worse.
Gonna come up with your own version of something that's -5 stars, Monk?
Do I look like Vince Russo to you? Don't answer that. I mean, obviously not, because I'm not New York enough. And I don't end every sentence with bro.
You're the one setting yourself up for shit, Monk. This isn't my fault.
Besides, I'd like to... I don't plan on doing a revisiting of 20 years of -5 stars. Ask me again when there's 30 years worth of -5 stars. Then I might consider it.
It's not to say we didn't.
Bro doesn't end his sentences in bro when going to say a friend.
Uh, I do know. Well, the other reason I'm not going to revisit it is because there are certain matches on that list that I never want to see again. And what one would think does that include that whole Charmel match? No, although that was bad. No, I'm talking. I never want to see Giant Gonzalez in anything ever again because I don't want to see that outfit again. Or even worse, see Rick Rude without a mustache. Ugh. But getting to the heart of matters, this particular idea, constructing a Final Fantasy Explorers 2, was something that I had considered fairly recently. The primary premise is due to the fact that I've been delving my fair share into FF through the various projects we've been doing, and of course through dipping into Monster Hunter. Since a buddy of mine wanted to do Monster Hunter in tabletop form, and I said, just go play the board game for right now. What you want specifically out of it is not going to be feasible, and I'm not doing it for at least another 2 years.
Yeah.
Though the Monster Hunter World board game is pretty good, I will note that. But I remember when we were doing research then, and I had a back and forth with you regarding Explorers, which I think you had said that game is a bit overlooked, or in some cases gets more shit than it deserves.
Both are true. Final Fantasy Explorers is a hidden gem that I think was overlooked by the Final Fantasy crowd because, well, it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy to most of the grogs over there.
Well, let's be honest, those kind of people just want Final Fantasy VI until the end of time.
And don't get us wrong, Final Fantasy VI is a good game, but evolution must occur. But then on the other side of things...
I don't recall it getting much press.
Yeah, on the other side of things, it was marketed very poorly. And then on the action game / hunting game genre side of people, it was too... what's the best word here? It was too go around bashing the small guys. Like, I think they took the initial missions and just extrapolated that to the whole game without getting to some of the bigger monster fights in the game.
Yeah,
because
from what I saw, the maps were the map to monster ratio was a little bit too skewed.
Well, it really depends on what mission you're taking. Early on, you're fighting things like goblins, so of course the combat's going to be a little simple. But as you get it further on and you're fighting like wyverns and other series staple, or fighting cactuars. God, fighting cactuars is a thing. There is an element of strategic play you have to take into account. There's also leveling up your classes and getting different skills and leveling up those skills. There's a lot of advancement to it that isn't just I think when it comes to the hunting side of things, those people they don't want advancement tied to character, they want advancement tied to equipment like it is in Monster Hunter, which, you know, Monster Hunter is a very good game series, and yes, advancement is primarily tied to your equipment, though in some cases you can get extra small things like the Switch Scroll stuff and Rise by doing missions, and that's technically tied to character, but also technically tied to weapon because switch skills differ between weapons. Is
Explorers similar to World of Final Fantasy?
No.
Explorers is you take control of a character in third person. There's action combat. You can switch between jobs, and jobs get different perks and skills. Specifically some really cool weapon skills, but it's all I am of course oversimplifying a bit here because going into the minutiae would have us here forever, but it's a very different feel from hunting games as most hunting game players would expect, and it's a very different feel from a lot of Final Fantasy games as many mainstay Final Fantasy gamers would expect. If I had to put this on line with something, I would say that this is the proto Stranger of Paradise. You can't shift jobs on the fly, or even at like a save point, and you can't have 2 jobs at a time. But it very much feels like you get the different weapon and kit bonuses, and you get some cool special effects. Like if you're playing a black mage, yeah, you're going to have magic. But it feels almost like you could take Final Fantasy Explorers and extrapolate a lot of it into what happened with Stranger of Paradise, even though Stranger of Paradise was primarily developed by Team Ninja.
Yeah, and I will note that I do not consider something being developed by another studio somehow exempt from it being part of that franchise. If I were to take that approach, then I'd have to discount my enjoyment of Dragon Quest VIII, since that was developed by Level 5.
But now, as one of the other ones here who has played Explorers, I went into it never really being able to get into Monster Hunter. What it kind of felt like for me playing is, in a lot of ways, it's a lot simpler to get into. I'm not saying it doesn't get its complexities as it builds on, but it does feel like a simpler look at what you would expect out of a Monster Hunter game.
Well, it's a different ethos entirely, which is the hunting is there, and you do get cool stuff from the bigger things you hunt, but you refine that stuff not into new equipment, though. Or I should say, not just into new equipment. Yeah. You refine a lot of it into your weapon skills and your passives and everything else too.
Oh yeah, like I quite enjoyed playing through Explorers when it first came out, but it is a game that even people who played it as time went on, it seemed like a quickly forgotten game. Well, there's still people that are big fans of it, but
yep. Riona, go ahead.
I think I have better grasp of it now, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then Sieg says Stranger of Paradise is one of his favorites, and he's a Neo simp. Well, both good games. Of course, Monk, 11th commandment.
Oh yeah, thou shalt
not simp. But if you do go into Final Fantasy Explorers, first things that you need to know, it is a 3DS game, so there are the hardware limitations that come with 3DS games. It is also a product of its time, so there are going to be some probably clunkier things to it than you'd be used to in Neo or Stranger of Paradise. But overall, if what you're looking for is a game where you can play a character that can put on different Final Fantasy classes to do different really cool bullshit, and you want it to be multiplayer, because that's the big thing here. Final Fantasy Explorers was a handheld title that could do, ad hoc multiplayer. You could have other people jump into your small little lobby of 4 people and go do the missions together. Now, clearly, that means you'd need to be in the location nearby someone, or you'd have to use the online mode, which I think is dead at this point. Pretty sure the servers are down. But if, for example, Sieg, you and your wife both have 3DSs and both want to play a Final Fantasy action game with some Monster Hunter-esque points to it, this would be the game for y'all to at least try out.
But the reason why I wanted to explore this, go figure, in the idea of doing a sequel is the fact that as you mentioned, this as a prototype of what we get with Stranger of Paradise, which is ostensibly leaning whole hog into character action. And there's also
Character action with high customization, yeah.
there is also the fact that the formula for Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter likes has gone through some significant evolutions over the last few years, and I think it would be interesting to explore the concepts that we saw in Explorers that are more, but in a way that's more reflective of how we've seen the Monhunt genre and how we've seen customizable character action evolve over the last few years. And I think the first thing that would need to be addressed in doing a hypothetical sequel, which I will note, I'm under no illusions of having it take place in the same world as the previous game, especially in keeping with FF traditions. That and because of the fact that it was so focused on multiplayer, the setting and the attempt at story wasn't that important. Which is not really something you can get away with nowadays. I mean, even there's a good amount of time that Monster Hunter didn't have a lot of story emphasis, but that's changed in the last few years.
Story, I would actually argue that story has always been a deep emphasis of Monster Hunter. In the fact that there's, it's like how story is a deep emphasis in FromSoft games. The story's hidden not just in what you can obviously see in front of you, but what you know about how the Monster Hunter developers have tried to make monsters part of a living and breathing ecosystem. So a lot of things that are implied by what's going on in any of the stories from Monster Hunter games is ecosystems are getting wrecked due to certain things, and this pushes some monsters out and other monsters in, and there's a lot to it. World and Rise both had slightly more focus on story, but it's only slightly. It's not a much larger amount than prior. Explorers had a story, and it was a fairly decent story. It pushed along the main quests as you needed it to. And then you got to the end game, like you do with all of these Hunter-likes, I guess we'll call them. And the gameplay loop is fight the cool stuff as much as possible to get the things you need to make what you want out of what you have. In Monster Hunter, this is make your really cool armor sets. Anyone who has played Monster Hunter to the very end, including to the end of G rank, or Master rank as it's called now, and has continued to play at the end of G rank for more than 5 hours, then inevitably becomes a fashion hunter. You cannot tell me that you did not become a fashion hunter if you've been playing for more than 5 hours past endgame, because I will look at you and call you a fucking liar. That's because at that point you have everything you need. Usually, you've farmed out the mats you need to get the sets that you want that are effective. Now you're trying to farm out effective sets that look cool. Very, very luckily, both in Iceborne later on and in Sunbreak, we got a system that allows for transmog, and fashion hunting became an entirely new world of fuck yes. We were very happy about that.
Mm-hmm. So, with that in mind,
I feel like this glam hunter aspect could use more story use and integration. Lot of CC games are terrified to let your CC have personality.
What do you mean by CC?
Character creation, I'm pretty sure is what you meant. Or custom character, yeah.
Customer Shiratsu, yeah.
So, with that kind of thing in mind, I think one of the issues that ends up happening is with something like this, where it's trying to do a leveling and ability approach, even having learnable action skills based on the Jobs. Oh. Who'd we lose?
We didn't lose anybody. That was sound of somebody watching Riona's stream. Her stream in Discord.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was me.
He realized he couldn't hear Riona, and now he needed to hear Riona.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was gonna beep everybody when I clicked that.
But you have that, and at the same time you have the get materials to get better equipment kind of thing. And there's the question of whether or not these kind of things clash, and if they do, is there a way to make them a little more complementary to each other?
They don't clash, as we saw from both the Neo games and from Stranger of Paradise. Because when you look at it at the end of the day, hunt type games are a subgenre of character action. Stranger of Paradise and Neo are character action games with high amounts of customizability, both in your stats and in your looks. With that in mind, there's also certain things you have to level up in both Neo and especially in fucking Stranger. God. Level 500 Ultima Mage. Ultima Summoner, please. What clashes for most people is not that they exist in the same ecosystem, but that they're usually made extremely, if I'm being generous, detailed. If I'm being ungenerous, tedious.
What do you mean tedious?
Monk, being able to play the highest levels of endgame in Stranger of Paradise means not only leveling up certain Uber classes to their absolute maximum, but getting very specific equipment setups that set you up to have super high bonus stats in order to both be survivable and do any damage. Tedious.
Some of that sounds like some of the traps that we try and avoid.
So negating the entire joy of making your own CAS.
In a sense, it negates the joy of choosing whatever you want if you want to be the most effective for efficiency. Obviously, not everybody is going to play for efficiency. They're going to play for fun, but sometimes when you're playing without efficiency, it's not fun either. In which case, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Stranger of Paradise manages to keep things very interesting regardless of how much of the tedium you have to do. Neo was always really fun because you could always return to the one weapon you loved. Hello, double swords, I love you. And the real changes that you made were between like your armor or the type of swords or whatever that you were using, or the spirit beast you had equipped when it came to Neo 1. The Team Ninja has been known to have a small problem when it comes to the whole optimization step at endgame. We've seen it with Neo 1 and 2. We've seen it with Stranger of Paradise. We've seen it with Wulong. Equipment gets very granular in how you can change its stats, and you change them in very small amounts, and you're looking for minor differences between two of the same thing just to get that extra edge. Kind of like how people would constantly try to refine character loadouts in like Diablo 2. When you try to find that one gem that was flawless instead of just, normal, or perfect instead of flawless.
Mm-hmm.
So like Neo 2?
I did mention Neo 2, so yeah. Explorers didn't really do this. Like, you did have to level up your classes, and you had to use certain abilities during a specific super mode in order to try and level up those abilities, but it never felt excessively tedious because it was all part of the gameplay loop.
Mm-hmm.
So you could, unless you got unlucky and things didn't level up when they were supposed to or whatever, Then you'd have to go grind it out a little, but that happens in actual hunt games as well, when you don't get the fucking mantle after the third fucking hunt and have to go 60 fucking hunts in. No, I'm fine. No. Rathalos mantles are not hard to get at all. It's fine. It's fine.
So, I think before we get into any of the crunch, I think also thank you Core 7 for joining the temple. I hope you enjoy your time here.
Sieg even points out the same problems. He said grinding in SOP was a bit excessive, but so was Neo 2's endgame. So yeah, when it comes to Team Ninja, they get the action really good and they get the customization really good, but the end game is where all the tedium comes in.
Mm-hmm. But I think the first thing to nail down is a particular direction, because I think the balancing of RPG and Monhun, like that kind of thing, can still be present. The question is, when it comes to the combat style, would you find it appropriate to lean a little bit further into character action?
Yes. One of the things about Final Fantasy Explorers is that for the time, the fighting and combat was actually fairly good, especially for a mobile game that was trying to evoke Final Fantasy, but also give that open feeling of hunting. It was definitely an experiment that didn't pan out too well in the West due to poor marketing and poor reception. But it's also dated. If you play it, you'll see that there needs to be more maneuverability. For example, there are certain ledges you just can't hop down on, which is kind of stupid. There's no jump, and jump has been essentially added to most character action games. Monster Hunter notwithstanding, you can sort of jump, or if you're in Rise, you can wire bug. But that's also because almost all of the monsters are balanced for ground fighting. So we would definitely want to lead into higher and more diverse types of mobility.
I think in regard to that, every single class should have some form of mobility option.
Yes, and I think that while every class should have a specialized form of mobility option unique to them, I think that there still needs to be a universal set of mobility options that you can fall back on for muscle memory.
Which we kind of had that with both World and Rise, so I think it's fair to bring something in not in the exact same vein, but something close.
Well, yeah.
Okay, hear me. This is a bit odd sounding, but I have an idea for a direction I would like to hear your thoughts on.
Okay.
I'm all ears. Also, apologies if my mic sounded a bit quiet. I'm still getting used to using
To help
Yeti.
build up story, motive, gradual progression, all that, how do you feel about taking elements from, say, Crystal Chronicles, namely that you need to go out for something further and further, traveling for Teehee villages, not just the hunts, but also needing a chalice-like mechanic to balancing while traveling and fighting?
So do you mean using a chalice to basically purify paths between different places?
Yes.
Okay. This is kind of something that Monk and I like to see in TTRPGs, the points of light aspect, where the safe zones are safe due to them having their security centralized around them, but everything else in between is dangerous. Part of the quest could be to, like, whatever the story is going to be, could be to forge out those paths and reconnect the world. That'd be an interesting idea. Let's actually table that for when we get into story, momentum, impetus, etc.
Yeah.
Right now, we're trying to nail down game feel.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
But no need to apologize. That was a great idea to bring up.
Now,
I'm just saying we keep that in mind. We set it aside for now, and move forward with the game field.
yeah. Now, in terms of the explorers had an HP and AP gauge.
AP was stamina.
Yeah, AP was stamina, but it was also used for your skills,
I
and your
mean,
skills also had cooldowns.
mhm.
Which, if I'm being honest, I've never been a big fan of having two costs at the same time for a lot of abilities.
um, I don't see how it's an issue when it comes to this particular genre of games. Every game that we've mentioned thus far has two or more costs for special abilities. Even in Neo, I mean, you had the key for even swinging your swords, but using higher level abilities, uh, it could cost you part of your. Uh, it could require you to summon your spiritual beast, which then had a gauge that was ticking down every use,
Mhm.
or it was an ability you couldn't use um, until you had your key restored. I mean, anybody who mastered the key breathing stuff didn't really worry about that. But there was always more than just one cost in Neo, and in Stranger of Paradise, there's more than one cost, especially if you're doing magic. Magic.
I think the issue that I had was in this case is the whole cooldown part of it.
Well, most skills, the cooldown was about as long as it took for your basic weapon combo. So you do your basic 3-hit combo. Like, I literally just did it on the 3DS before we came in. You do your 3-hit combo, you do your special on top of it, you go after the next thing, do your 3-hit combo, it's ready to go again. Because I only have one special ability right now,
Yeah,
since it's at the beginning of the game.
That's just that's a case of personal preference in my case. And in all fairness, it's not like it's a case where AP is recharging the way stamina is recharging in some games. It comes back pretty quickly.
Yes, AP comes back very quickly.
Which that brings the other thing that is utilized, that being resonance, which can enhance certain abilities. It's a concept that's shared among whole teams when you're playing multiplayer, and if you're not attacking or healing, will gradually decrease. Do you feel would resonance still fit within the more character action leaning direction we'd be going for game feel?
Resonance resonance was one of the mechanics that allowed you to do super moves, essentially. You could build up resonance in single player. I've done it. In order to get your crystal surges, and that caused your abilities to mutate, which gives you custom abilities. And this is just something that naturally happened through gameplay, even if you were playing alone. I think resonance, even if we don't necessarily call it resonance and crystal surges, etc., I think this particular form of advancement that is built directly into the gameplay loop you're already doing, which is, you're going around and attacking, you're going around and healing yourself, you're going around and doing your specials, you're going around and eventually a crystal surge is available, and you can choose a surge from your randomly selected surges to do stuff. And that'll
We have a
activate.
miasma and poison mechanic to draw on Neo. It could be lesser cooldown and more like the more you exert, the more corruptino that seeps into you, so you have to sop and purify at one point. Resonance might work well with it too, balancing how far you can venture from T-Crystal being both a danger and help too.
I could see some of those systems interacting. That could be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing about that is when things interact that way, it all becomes a part of your gameplay loop. You get used to, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing that thing, and it becomes second nature. So that could actually be a great way to incentivize seeking resonance. Even is your higher your resonance, the more resistance you have to whatever hazard is in your way. So the longer you can stay out to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really fun because that gives you a risk reward tightrope to walk. I think that could be one way of doing it. There are probably other ways too.
Although I would say, given the more character action leanings, I think generating resonance should be something not far removed from generating style gauges in say a DMC, like, in the sense that repetition is discouraged and variety is encouraged.
I can see that. It would have to be a little less intricate compared to DMC because of the other interacting systems that we have.
Yeah, I'm not saying go whole hog style points.
Yeah,
but
and this all ties back into my harping on maneuverability and ease of movement. For the basic movement package that everybody should have, that doesn't include whatever extra goodies they get from their class, they definitely should have a basic jump of some sort. Not a dragoon's jump. Dragoon's jump is going to be very special to them. But a basic jump, a basic dodge, and perhaps even a dodge roll. Maybe you double tap and it goes into a roll instead. And a basic parry, just for your basic evasion / defense moves. Movement should feel fairly free. You'd obviously have a way to run or dash.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, attack in any direction by holding in that direction. Like most character action games.
Yeah.
But you also have, get lock-ons and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like what Resonance could do there, if it's not only like a style gauge, it could also be sort of like, if we're going to go with the idea of a style gauge in an action format, I almost feel like the freshness idea in Ultra Kill, where the more you're doing variety, the more it empowers you as well.
Yeah, I'd be perfectly fine with that.
And that way, not only is your resonance going up and you're getting more power, and you're being able to last out there longer, but you're also getting more powerful as you just become the flashiest motherfucker on the field.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, I do. Now, as far as the whole trance thing turning you into classic characters, I feel like trance. I'd be perfectly fine with keeping it. I just don't think the whole turning into past characters in the franchise is the way I'd want to go.
No, I think. Oh, go ahead, Riona. I see you typing.
Punch the
Encouraging
cage.
style and flash goes well with CFC. Also, what if trance is linked to embodying assertion primal? And you pick which one?
Integrating it with eidolons, which were already present. I think
that'd be like dependent on job at that point.
Yeah, I was actually thinking I was either thinking of going with Eidolon or going with Trance as some sort of super job kind of effect. The even funnier if you have it that the quest to unlock trance involves you collecting a rat tail.
Eh.
Just as
Serious
a nice
staples.
little, just as a nice little in joke.
Yeah. So the way I would see trance is trance was in all names, in all but name it, a super mode. Even though you were transforming into previous staple characters from Final Fantasy games past, it was basically a super form.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of it being a super job, whatever job you're using, it becomes, you turn that job into, you cranked it up to 11. Spinal Tap jokes here.
Yep.
And I think that's fine to keep trance as that sort of super job expression. Now, if there was a summoner job in our particular version of Final Fantasy Explorers 2, because summoner is one of those things that's really hard to get in a multiplayer setting.
I honestly would lean into the way summoner is handled in the MMOs in that case.
If we have it as a job. If not, I would say that you could make a choice. Like, you could equip some sort of Eidolon or primal item in a slot, and then when you get your trance, you have a choice: super job or big damage summon.
Here's what I'm thinking. The super job approach is would be akin to Devil Trigger. You can build up doing the stuff you normally do builds up a gauge. You can activate it. It gradually goes down with the transformation, or summon, which is a screen clearing bomb, or at least a big damage bomb. We've all played rail shooters. We know how that works. The catch is that the summon needs the whole gauge.
I think that could work.
So it's a case of you want a quick little advantage that isn't going to be as costly but isn't going to be as powerful, or a really big one that's going to take up the whole thing. And obviously with that kind of thing, it would be tempting to have both be accessible. I think it should be a choice. Like when you're setting up your equipment before going out on a hunt, it's something you have to choose in advance. Or do you think it should be both?
Riona's typing something.
Mm-hmm. Punch the keys, for God's sake!
You're not Scottish enough for that, monk.
Maybe a Syrian archetype mentor gauge. Like you follow one or two paths of a certain NPC based on certain iconic Shiratsu but with added layers.
Maybe.
I feel that would be like hiding a mechanic behind too many layers. Core 7 over on Twitch says, what would be the reason to make them choose before the mission? Both options are interesting, but we need to consider the why as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really leaning towards having the option for both being accessible. I think the choice before battle would be what summon you're bringing, because not all summons do damage.
That is fair.
And in this case, like Devil Trigger, and if we're being honest here, Devil Trigger has a super attack attached to it in DMC games, at least in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold down the Devil Trigger button long enough, you'll go into Devil Trigger with a huge explosion around you.
Yeah.
It uses more of your Devil Trigger gauge to go into Devil Trigger that way, though.
Yeah. Given that, I would like to go one step further and treat the summon option instead of as a bomb option, but treated more the way summons were utilized in Dissidia NT. And by that I mean it's something that effectively turns that area into having its own stage hazards, because the summon is active throughout that area.
So you don't want the summon to just be a screen clearing bomb.
I'm entertaining the idea that it's something a bit longer lasting than a screen clearing bomb.
Okay,
So-
how about this then? If we pick summons as something you bring and have stages of summoning, what if the summon you bring has effects on stage hazards but also helping you do field effects or gathering?
I mean, I think you and Riona just had the same idea there, Monk.
Yep.
Convergent creativity. Nice. So the way I'm seeing that is, first of all, if we look at Final Fantasy Remake Rebirth and how their summons work, they last. Certain things have to pop up for you to be able to summon a summon, but they stick around for an amount of a gauge that's going down, doing smaller attacks and then ending with their series iconic attack.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to have the whole field effects and assisting thing, I think that's how that has to go.
Like if you go to a water area and Shiva, for example, could help freeze the water or affect weather.
Yeah, and that's a good example. That's a really good example. Thank you, Rihanna.
Yeah.
If we're going to combine the idea of Dissidia NT having the summons come in being, stage hazards or some sort of stage effect, along with still having the whole summon nuke effect, because I'm going to be honest here, Monk, nobody in the video games wants the summon not to be able to perform, for example, Shiva Diamond Dust. Diamond Dust has to go off at some point. That's a Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
So
in that case, I'd have that as the thing that ends it.
Yeah, and the way I see it is you have this super gauge that builds up. The super gauge can be used for super job, and that slowly depletes your job, but you can turn it on and off at will, just like Devil Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if your super gauge is full, you can still use super job all you like. But if you want to use your summon, you cannot use...
And
Monarch had to go.
Lost Monarch.
Yeah, Monarch had to go.
Mm-hmm.
Monarch was having Discord issues. But if you choose to summon at a full bar, you cannot use super job until everything's over and you start building up gauge again.
Yeah, like all the benefits for both battle and exploring could end if you summon for the big attack, but otherwise the summon helps and shapes the whole field trip.
Mm-hmm. That I'm perfectly fine with.
Yeah. Now, the big thing is if you do summon the summon at any point, it's going to start consuming your super job gauge.
Mm-hmm.
And you aren't going to be able to use your super job at all for that point.
Yeah.
And additionally, no matter what, once the gauge hits 0, the summon will fire off their big attack. I think there should be an option to tell them to fire off their big attack earlier, just in case you just need to get the super gauge depleted and need your super job real quick.
Mm-hmm.
All it does is truncate the assistance that the summon has been giving you during the duration of the gauge and makes them use their big attack right then and there. I don't think there needs to be anything more than that.
Yeah. Now I would say getting to the primary loop, since Riona had earlier mentioned leaning into the whole how far can you go out to hunt with a la Crystal Chronicles. I think we have a open door to creating a gameplay loop within that, and that is using the premise of essentially and this is something we've kind of dipped into before, but building what amounts to a frontier town. Going out, getting resources to further develop it, and using those resources to develop different facilities within the town to expand it, and thus you're able to get better equipment, get better training, and so the loop continues. And the Cosmic Ballet goes on.
I mean, we have that feeling in Monster Hunter games. I mean, developing certain facilities like the farm and stuff so that you can make more of whatever at the farm, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see why that would be an issue.
Yeah.
I think that the real clincher is going to become when you hit the next. If we're going to use the whole chalice is keeping the miasma away motif, I don't know that we've chosen to do something different, and really it's a good metaphor for the type of gameplay we're going for. The next place that makes your chalice more powerful is going to be one of the ones that's furthest out. It's not something you can do at your own frontier town.
Yeah, the approach that I'm thinking is doing the points of light, but not necessarily having miasma per se, but it's more of akin to I guess the swords of protection in Sword World. In the sense that the stronger monsters are kept out of the towns thanks to this kind of thing, and the stronger effects are kept out. Instead of calling it miasma, just as another callback, I'd actually go with mist. Oh, welcome back, Monarch. It's more about the further away you are from the crystal, the better the rewards, but the bigger the risk.
What if the force that the monsters represent is a kind of dark energy that fuels a constant mutation and evolution that instill aggression?
That's the mist. That's literally the mist.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That is literally how the mist works, especially in FF9. I knew what you were alluding to, Riona.
It'd also be a good way to introduce variants of monsters.
Yeah, increased mist activity, you get monster variants, or places where the mist settles, like valleys and caves and stuff will have higher monster variants.
I would use caves as there's some really good loot in there, but also if you end up getting taken out in there, anything that you manage to grab, you don't come back with.
The dungeon, dropping all your dungeon loot in the dungeon. Got it.
Yeah.
And also lets you have a motive to use this energy and the parts off monsters for the frontier town.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that works. That is a very defined gameplay loop. Develop your town, build it up to be stronger and more protected over time. Go into places of deeper and deeper mist to get better monster parts and find better treasure and get better magical energy to again expand the town.
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, when it comes to there's a handful of jobs already within Explorers, and
there's a lot of jobs.
Oh yeah, there's a lot, and I do have to wonder if some of the jobs might be might have to be folded. And no worries, Riona. But this is the list of the jobs that are present, and I'm curious if you guys think that some of these should be folded into other jobs as kit. As well as establishing what the play style of some of them would be.
When it came to Explorers, many of the jobs couldn't fold into each other. They had some very unique mechanics tied to each, which was really good. Especially, like, you may think that Machinist and Ranger are too close to each other.
Black Mage and Dark Knight, maybe even Red Mage, are all easy to fold into each other.
But would we want to fold them into each other? Each of them does some really cool, unique things. I know that when it came to us making Legend Edition, we folded stuff in because it was kind of necessary for a TTRPG. But when it comes to Final Fantasy as a video game, since this is a video game, there have always been classes that feel similar to each other throughout the series that don't ever get folded into each other because there's a motif to that particular class that people just want that class.
One class that can take on different aspects, like if you lean towards one end of a spectrum or the other.
I'm thinking I don't know if I'd really want to fold any of them in on each other because of that. I think from what I remember, they did a good job in the original of keeping them all feeling worthwhile additions.
Yeah. Well, like I was going to say, the difference between Machinist and Ranger. Most people would think, well, they're both just long-ranged attackers. Why not fold them in? The big thing is that with Ranger, they are the status kings. Whereas Machinist does have some status effects, but it's like this trade-off system where they inflict a status on the enemy while buffing themselves at the same time, and it's a lot more limited. Not to mention guns and bows do have different uses and different stats, and they combo differently. Most people would be like, but what about Knight and Paladin? Again, Paladin has some really cool stuff to it that Knight doesn't have, and vice versa.
But because we're leaning a little bit into character action, that does give us a chance to reevaluate the playstyle of several of these entries.
I understand that. I just don't think that folding jobs into each other is a good idea.
All right.
Like, straight up.
Yeah.
So ignoring the folding part, which was just something I threw in there as a possibility, but not every possibility goes through.
Okay, then how about a possible FF12 style system?
You mean the Zodiac system?
Yes.
The problem with that is that it couldn't be a permanent decision. In FF12, you could choose two different, and that would be it for that character.
I'll refine it with this. OG Zodiac, that'd be a little iffy on, especially if there's the whole permanent decision. Zodiac, where the board was split in 12, that I think would be a little bit more amenable.
Well, that's what we're referencing, Monk. The board was split in 12, but you could only choose 2 categories for a character, and that was it. That you were done then.
Well, what I'm saying is
in the Zodiac job system, I know.
Yeah, what I'm saying is instead of the whole pick one and you're done, each one, you have a universal level that is granting points to each one that you have.
So what I'm thinking here is, as part of longevity for grinding in a lot of the games that have jobs, Monk, they keep their job levels separate for a reason.
All right.
Because you want to build up, you want to try out that new kit, build up that new job. It gives you a chance to first of all, learn the earlier parts of the kit, and B, try it out against various enemies as you go on. What I'm talking about with Riona's idea here of, what if we use the Zodiac system in a way, is build variety. Kind of like how in certain I guess one of the examples I've seen is Path of Exile, how you can switch out gems to get a new build for the class you're playing.
Yeah. Although
I think
although since you referenced Path of Exile, I'd be a little hesitant to use the giant passives board that game
no,
has.
I'm not saying we're using the board. I'm talking about the ethos. If we're going to include some sort of choosing a part of a path within a job, I think that first of all, yeah, we could have that, but it can't be a permanent choice. It has to be something you're allowed to switch through. And as you're switching through it, there may be certain things that you have to go out to acquire specifically.
I do remember Kingdoms of Amalur made it stupid easy to respec, and I think that would be key.
Yeah, and well, like
Switching
let me.
is good.
Yes, switching is absolutely good. We like build variety in this house. But let me put it this way, Monk. Let me take Dark Knight, and let's say Dark Knight gets 3 build paths. You have the traditional, I'm casting from HP to do more bullshit to you, Dark Knight. You have the more, let's say the whole, I am the guy who is actually a split personality, and now there's 2 of me, Dark Knight, that's part of like what we see in 14. Or what the Reaper took inspiration from Explorers, because as you see in this game, Dark Knight uses scythes as their primary weapon, as one of their primary weapons. The whole accompanied by a dark spirit thing as a third path. And like you could level up Dark Knight just by itself on any of these paths and get the basic bulk or pieces of Dark Knight. But then when you switch to another path, you might have to spend some I'm going to call them what they are, my friend, their AP, their ability points, their whatever you want to call them. You might have to spend some extra into the path-specific mechanic additions. But then once you've done that, if you switch to another path and go back to the first one, they're still bought.
Yeah.
That's the type of build variety thing I'm thinking of.
Yeah, although instead of leaning into paths, I do think leaning into the skill system that's already exists in there would be a better option.
Yes. I'm sketching this out, spitballing, Monk.
Mm-hmm.
What's really fun there is that I think that part of the super job thing should be that all things are active at the same time.
Yes.
Like the builds that you've created are the variety, but then your super job is you've got everything for the time that the super job is active.
Yes. And going down the list in terms of there's the question of what sort of play style should be built around. And going from top to bottom, we have Alchemist, which was basically the chemist from other games and could use firearms.
Are you talking about classes that were in Explorers?
Yes.
Or okay. Like, I think that we could probably drop the firearm play, because just using alchemy alone, you could emulate close range firearms explosions, among other things.
Why am I thinking of a demo man?
No. I'm trying to evoke more of well, for anyone who's played Shadow of the Erd Tree, perfumer's flasks, or if I have to go with other games, the witches happen to hat in
Elemental
time.
cannons, firearm works, bomb barrages.
Like the concept that I'm picturing is not necessarily is them essentially setting up AoEs with elemental grenade equivalents in their item use, or setting those same items down as traps.
I mean, that could be part of it, but remember that we're leaning pretty heavily into character action here now, Monk. So it's got to be a little quicker than that in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that could be like stuff you do as part of your special movement. You set up traps as part of your special movement.
Their special movement should be the equivalent of grenade jumping.
I won't get into that one, but so what the way I'm envisioning this is a combination of like the perfumer's flasks as we've seen in Shadow of the Erd Tree, because that's actually a really cool alchemical way to fight. Riona knows personally, since she tried to use perfumer's flasks on Melania a few times.
How'd that turn out?
Lol, it was worth a shot.
I watched her die to Melania with that one.
Turns out dragon incantations are just much better.
They're just much better, yep. But then a little bit of like for distance attacks. If anybody's ever played a Hat in Time besides me here, no, just me. No, probably has. Yeah, the Witch's Hat in a Hat in Time, its special ability allows you to charge and throw an explosive flask. So like, that's kind of what I'm thinking of as part of some of their more distance play of their kit. And then, since we're already invoking Monster Hunter, has anybody ever used alchemy style in Monster Hunter Double Cross / Generations Ultimate? Because I have.
For the benefit.
Flask vest and flask cannon.
Yep.
But essentially, you know, as part of the kit, you'll for the quicker attacks, and you'll be doing most of the whole splashing them with acid and throwing little flasks at them and stuff like that. For your bigger attacks, I imagine that's when you'll see like a mix, like you'll actually see them mix something together, and so you'll have that animation for a bigger attack that you'll have to pull off, and maybe you'll have a specific way of picking what a mix does. But I don't think it should be too involved of a system.
Also, I remembered that I had this concept art in the back, and I'm like, let's go with this. This concept art of a flask lock pistol.
I remember this. That could be an interesting bit of kit, sure. But I'm really thinking that alchemy or alchemist is probably going to be it's going to be more of a CC type class than anything. It's going to do a lot of area denial, a lot of control. Mm-hmm. It's also going to be squishy, very squishy.
I do think one of the abilities that it should have at some point is being immune to friendly fire.
Friendly fire isn't.
Yes. I'd say the bard would be an easy enough one. You already kind of have that in kind of have an equivalent in both its original kit and the hunting horn in Monster Hunter.
Yeah, Bard's pretty easy.
Friendly fire, friendly chemical weapon is much more effective.
The approach, as odd as this may sound, the approach that I'd take is almost make their combos into something of a rhythm game. You know, where they're setting up their music to support, but depending on timing of button presses, it may have its own benefits or have even animation canceling if somebody can get the timing right.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm. The Beastmaster has the big ol' axe, and all I'm thinking is just steal from Greatsword, a charging weapon that has some forms of super armor.
Hold on.
What about throwing hatchets?
You want to turn them into a Belmont?
Yes.
Well, the I like that. Monk, the real problem is that Beastmaster's whole thing was using the monster creation system in the game to fight with enhanced versions of monsters as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that as part of their equipment kit, they choose some monsters, and your whole combo potential is going to be how well you combo off of your monsters. Kind of like V from Devil May Cry 5, except not nearly as ineffectual when you're this as V is, because he has to have his monsters do all the fighting.
Here's my proposal then. And by the way, apparently you and I are in outliers when it comes to utilizing V.
The Angelio launcher from 8-Bit Dual Wielded.
No, absolutely not. But the idea that I have in my head is a dichotomy of light attacks and heavy attacks. Light attacks are the beast companion. Heavy attacks are the axe, and you have to balance them.
I think balancing them is going to be part of it. You're going to want to use the light attacks as setup to force things into your heavy attack.
Yes.
And it's like this game of volleyball you're playing with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Also, double Angelo launchers would be hilarious. Riona gets me.
And obviously the heavy attacks can be charged.
Yeah, having a charged attack is still a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
There are other heavy weapon users that will probably have charged attacks on their heavy weapons as well.
Yeah.
But this interplay of I'm choosing these three monsters because these three monsters are going to help me. Not only are these three monsters going to help with whatever I'm fighting, the fact that you're choosing a kit of monsters means you need to know your target ahead of time,
mm-hmm.
or just be really good generically with the types of monsters you're using, which I think gives some really nice flexibility in gameplay.
I would when it comes to the next one on the list, the Black Mage, I would say that you can have that
Monk.
What?
No, Monk, we already have a Black Mage. We already know how this kit is going to play in a character action game. I point to Tara Branford and Dissidia.
Yeah, what I was thinking is that you'd have to balance between direct single target spells and AoEs.
I mean, like I said, Monk, I just point to Tara Branford and Dissidia.
Well, which Dissidia? PSP Dissidia or NT?
I haven't played NT, so what do you think I'm pointing at?
Fair.
But I mean, her kit is, from what I've seen of footage of NT, her kit's pretty similar to what it was in Dissidia and Dissidia Duodecim. But she is the quintessential Black Mage in a character action game. We would just have to speed it up a little and make it so that more minor spells like Fire and Blizzard were more close range. That's really it.
Yeah, and she was actually one of a handful of characters in NT that got a significant rework.
Really?
Yeah. Though of course is important to note that NT was doing things significantly differently, and some people were mad that Meteor got nerfed twice, but even nerfed twice, it was still pretty good. But her whole thing was having a big variety of brave attacks when it came to her setup.
I'm not talking specific in Dissidia mechanics. I'm talking more about general gameplay feel.
Yeah. And actually, I would say the whole magic charge thing she had, where you could set up multiple spells at once and then let them go. I think that'd be perfect for a black mage with this system.
Yes.
Um,
But I also think that that's something that you'd have to set up after trapping them with some of your smaller spells.
mhm.
That's going to be something that you're working towards as part of the fight.
Yeah.
Um,
Then there's blue mage.
Blue Mage, I point to Zero from Mega Man 04 using the Zero hand.
Would you also point to ZX Advent?
Yeah, I could see that as well. But mostly, what I'm thinking of here is Blue Mage starts with no enemy spells and has to get them while they're in the field, and can steal them as part of their combo.
Mm-hmm.
And the last part is if they really, really want to, instead of just using the spell as normal, they can burn it, figuratively speaking, to do a much bigger version of the move.
This sounds like some of the stuff that I was concepting early on. And truth be told, blue mage is a very tricky class to design for.
I mean, Blue Mage is tricky, but as a character action class, I think it's really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Blue Mages primarily learn monsters' abilities as magical emulation. They're going to have a normal combat kit that's, fighting with weapons and armor, because they do wear weapons and armor.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be the heaviest of either. And then part of the combo is I just stole an enemy skill that can now be used as part of the combo, and it does different effects, whatever it might be. Obviously, that means the list of enemy skills is going to have to be finite and known.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, you're going to have probably a way to store certain enemy skills so that you can use them as initial loadouts.
Yeah.
But early on, you'll be starting with Zero and just taking what you can from the field.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it as an advancement in the frontier town when you get to the point that you can store certain ones and keep them for initial loadouts.
Mm-hmm.
But like Blue Mage is not hard to design, in my opinion. In my opinion.
So Dark Knight, I think one of the bigger questions is would you have Dark Knight go with scythes or with great swords, or both?
Yes.
Okay, because beyond that, a concept I was thinking
Both.
is, the difference between the two is great swords have super armor, but scythes
on certain
have,
attacks.
Yeah, on certain attacks. Scythes on the other hand, are spin to win. Where you can keep certain moves going for longer amounts of time,
And they also flow better.
Yeah.
Hazy switching with spells and FF11 kind of trains.
But
Haseo? Wait, did someone reference Dot Hack to you? Riona, marry me already, goddammit.
While you're debating over that, we have another opportunity to laugh at Reiki Kawahara then. But there was a certain infinite dopamine loop that I am considering.
Oh God!
And that is, we have the whole thing of Dark Knight's casting from HP, which I'm perfectly fine with keeping.
Okay.
But what I'm also thinking is they have instead of Soul Eater being a special attack per se, have it as a stance. You do a lot of damage, but each hit you do reduces your HP, and a vampiric stance that does less damage, but you heal every time you hit. And further that on with the fact that you are getting tougher the lower your HP is, so you're playing balancing act with your hit points.
Okay. Looks like Riona is saying
Okay,
that Dark
how
Knight
about
can.
this? A later game ability that lets you drain from your chalice/crystal?
That could also be something in the works. But Monk, are you saying that you need me to improvise the motto for this one?
Yes.
Okay, what are the names of the stances? Soul Eater and what?
Um. For now, I'm just gonna call it Soul Eater and Lifesteal.
Okay. Let's see. Soul Eater means more damage. More damage means more Soul Eater. Soul Eater turns into Lifesteal, and Lifesteal makes the loot tighter.
The Daddy Gobbler and the Big Suck.
Yeah.
I was also thinking, Monk, that the stances could be tied directly to your weapons. And I was going to say, Great Sword means more damage. More damage means the Scythe. Scythe means more life, which makes the whole loot tighter.
Yeah, that is certainly a possibility. But next is Dragoon. I'd say Dragoon's one of the easier ones to go with in this.
Dragoon's our airborne boy of death.
So
you do not sit on the floor. The floor is lava is your game. This is Insect Glaive on steroids.
This is not only Insect Glaive, but Dragoon in Explorers had some skills of throwing the spear. The idea that I'm going with is...
Looks like that's our call.
Also sorry for having to go, but thank you all for having, and thank you to the lovely temple for having me on.
Of course.
Always appreciated. You're open to come back anytime, because Lord knows we have plenty of ideas.
I'm going to continue proposing marriage to you until you accept.
Also, no, I am not letting you make a breastmaster class. Stop asking. If you want to make, if she wants to make that, she'll have to homebrew it herself.
I missed her already, Monk.
I was actually thinking of when I look at the Dragoon's weapon and I see that little rope there. I am thinking that the lance gets used as a harpoon. And here's another dopamine loop. You jump, you charge, and you can throw the lance and use the lance to set up getting in close instantly. Basically, the lance is both your weapon and your grappling hook.
Okay. Let me see this. More jump means more harpooning. More harpooning means more jumping. More harpooning means more damage, which just makes the loop tighter.
Yes.
There you go.
Because I think that the way to do a gameplay loop for the Dragoon is learning how to manage distance.
Mm-hmm.
And understand, but I wouldn't have the throwing the lance be a full-on long-range attack. It'd be mid-range. It'd be a case where you have to have a good understanding of how far you can shoot.
I think that part of it could be really cool is if you could use their special jump and harpoon from the air for a high jump level of damage. Later skill.
Oh.
But again, as I said, it's also the floor is lava. You do not stay on the ground as a Dragoon. Straight up.
In the same vein, I think you should have the option to kick off of enemies to give yourself distance.
Absolutely. Like, one of the things that I would think of is let's say you harpoon in with the grapple hook and you're doing your bouncy attacks off of them so that you're constantly staying in the air, and maybe jump is charged and you jump.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose jump's direction, and I think that at that point you could jump in a distance, not just straight up.
Yeah. This also means you could have a bit of a skill moment of literally and possibly an achievement of taking the floor is lava literally, i.e., do an entire fight without touching the ground.
I mean, yes, I'm pretty sure there are insect glavers who already do that, so they'd love that.
Yeah. just using, and if, would I give it a double? Would I give it a double jump of jumping off of airborne enemies? Yes.
Dragon is asking, waifu husbando class? No.
Um,
Even if Breastmaster would be a fantastic class.
Free. When it came to freelancer, that being the jack of every trade,
Freelancer was the default state for when you didn't have a job equipped.
yeah.
They didn't really have anything super special, but they could do anything that wasn't specialized. So I think that what Freelancer would get as it advances is better versions of the basic kit. Like, maybe they get a double jump. Maybe they get further rolls with more iframes. Maybe they get a better type of parry. So on and so forth.
Possibly.
As far as their action kit goes, depends on the weapon they have equipped.
Yeah, I think it. I look at Geomancer as a case of this is the job for people who want to be weapon purists. I mean, it's going to have a higher floor, but you should expect that. With Geomancer, I don't know. I think with Geomancy that'd be an ideal way to do some messing around with terrain kind of things.
So the real problem with Geomancer in a character action game is, I think you're going to have to do most of the same types of stuff. Like, let's say they have a pillar that shoots them into the air or whatever, and what that's going to do is change its elemental or status effect abilities based on where you are.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I could easily see Geomancer being a nightmare to program.
It would be so I would actually, so what I would see it if I were going to program Geomancer in the way I'm thinking, the moveset would do all the same stuff to the ground, the ground, ceiling, and walls. Like, you could pull up spikes from the earth, or throw air blades, etc., etc. And you'd use that single animation set, and then you'd say read value for terrain equals X, apply X's effects to Geomancer's animations. It's actually very simple to pseudo program for. The exact coding would probably be a nightmare, but the coding is a nightmare no matter what, so fuck that.
It'd probably be pretty simple to figure out what kind of status effects, like icy area, slow. There you go.
Well, and then of course the real thing that you'd have to have one other check in there, and you know what that check is based on the earlier things we've been talking about?
What?
Is summon active? If so, does summon affect weather? If so, apply weather effects instead of terrain effects. So, like, for example, you have Ramu out, and now everything is thunderstorm, and Geomancer's animation effects all get fucking paralysis and lightning damage. Because, well, it doesn't matter that you're in the middle of a nice grassy field where the terrain effects you're going to get are earth-based. Ramu is out. It's a thunderstorm. You'd have to check for weather effects all the time as well, just in case.
But
that's three. So that's only 3 checks, though. If we're narrowing it down, that's only 3 checks.
Yeah, I do think that that one of its traversal abilities should be burrowing under the ground like it's Bugs Bunny or some shit.
You mean like it's Getter 2?
Yeah, we'll go with that. But,
hey, Getter 2 is the best digging robot ever.
But
I think not only should it have the ability to burrow like that or whatever, I'm really thinking that when it comes to traversal on terrain, Geomancer is the king. First of all, it's immune to any hazards. Like if you're in a volcano, it's immune to lava. And second of all, I think it should be, when we get to Ninja, I'm sure we'll talk about Ninja about this, but I think that it should still be able to walk on walls, if not run on them, like the Ninja probably will.
Would you give Geomancer a lot of anti-air options?
No. It would be very ground-based play. Like, when I say walk on walls, I mean that they're not like dashing like a ninja would, but they're also not probably even running.
Spider
The walk on, yeah, the walk on wall thing would be more for exploration than it would be for combat. Though you could use it for combat. For example, if you want to use your little boost jump that I was describing earlier, where you shoot a pillar up from under you. Hello, Edward Elric. Instead, you're doing it from the wall to throw yourself at the enemy for more damage or whatever. There'd be some fun shit we could do with that. It'd be fun.
Yep. But next is the knight, and
The Knigget.
yeah, and obviously the knight being the consummate tank is certainly going to be a thing. I do think that a lot of aggro control would be crucial for it. Same with the paladin, but I also think we'd need to find some way to integrate break. I'm thinking that when it comes to the knight, first off, instead of just sword and board, they should get the option of, say, axe and board, or polearm and board.
So are we talking about giving the knight from Explorers an extreme refit then? Because in Explorers they were a quintessential tank.
Yeah.
They had the highest malice generation. They had an ability called Chivalry, which made it so that that they would have higher chances of parry and also increase their malice generation even further. They were really good at blocking things. They could use swords and pavises, and then later daggers and spears, and could dual wield.
I just realized a possible option.
Okay.
They are Royal Guard.
Okay, so we make everything about the perfect parries.
They are. Yes, they are perfect. If you're just using them for straight attacks, you'll do decent. But you'll do a lot better if you master their parry system, because their parry and riposte will be where they do the most amount of their damage.
Okay, I can see that. I can see we make them tanks with a parry and riposte system would be awesome. Actually,
yeah, they are punished tanks.
Yes, they're still very traditional when it comes to the tanky side. They just take the hits, but. If they choose to take that hit in a way that allows them to get back at you, you better hope you didn't hit them hard. Okay, all right.
So, next is Machinist. And obviously the big thing with Machinist is the gun.
Yeah.
But with the advent of things like Gunbreaker and some other things, I have half of a mind to actually have them go a bit Gunblade.
You'd rather turn them into a Gunbreaker?
I think the option for that is there. If not that, then have Gunbreaker as its own job.
I think we could have them as Gunbreaker, especially since the whole thing that was unique to them. Like, I know that this little Explorer's image that we have says Machinists use guns for long-range attacks, inflicting status effects on the enemy, enhancing their own combat power. Machinists did not do a lot of status stuff. And the things they could equip were firearms, artillery, and knuckles. And then after mastery, they could do dual firearms and spears as well.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the big thing is like the status effects that they imply in that they did were things like break sight, which reduces all elemental resistances and prevents foes from evading your attacks, or Buster Cannon, which shot a round that passes through multiple foes. But the big things that they did with Drive and with Ingenuity, the two skills of the class, the unique and the standard, Drive reduced AP costs and cooldowns for all of your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And Ingenuity increased the stat boosts and durations of trances. So I think that figures in really well with a Gunbreaker, because of the fact that this is you use your abilities more often, and you boost yourself for longer.
Mm-hmm. And as far as using that's the more that you explain it, the more of the use of gunblades would make sense. And as far as their playstyle, as odd as this may sound, I'd actually lean into the whole EX variants that Nero has with the Red Queen.
Yeah.
Not in terms of revving it up, but also the fact that using a bullet does a variant of your normal attacks, and timing it right means that you can circumvent having to manually reload. So somebody who understands timing can just keep doing the EXs as much as they want.
Well, as much as their skill will allow them to, yes.
Yeah.
I think with Machinist, or are we just going to call it Gunbreaker since we're basically turning them into one?
I would say so.
Okay. So with our Gunbreaker, they're going to have gun arms, and this then begs the question, Monk. Artillery, are we going to give them a special type of gun arm that is artillery instead of just a firearm?
I was thinking gunblades, shotguns, and a what I'm calling a grenade mace or a grenade hammer.
Okay, I could see what you're dealing with there. I think that a lot of their trick is going to be pushback when it just comes to basic combat. Obviously, they're going to have ways of making themselves faster, making themselves stronger as part of how we pull from Machinists there. And their abilities are going to come out fairly quick. But I think a lot of their stuff is going to have pushback. So it's all a Machinist, a Gunbreaker is going to be about rushdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could very much see it. And, well, the times that we have had Gunblade users in an action game, they very much leaned into that. Squall in Dissidia was very much a combo fiend. So there's a precedent. Though as far as Monk, I'd say Monk should be the undisputed king of Rushdown, because, well, he kind of already was.
I mean, with Monk, they are the Lightning Bruisers. the other thing they had was they while they didn't have super armor, they had an ability that kept them from being moved easily. And I think that should be a thing there. And that's going to be a bit of a dual-edged blade for most players. Because knockback comes with most attacks. And so oh, I've been hit, maybe I should take the time to recoup. Oh no, as a monk, you are in their face for all but the strongest attacks. So be careful, watch your health. Don't get hit if you can.
And given that, I would say I would go one step further and have it that all of their attacks are cancelable. You can any attack that you do with monk, you can dodge cancel.
Okay.
I
can see that.
You're constantly trying to be in the enemy's face, and if you do get hit, it's your own. It's going to be your own misplace.
Own damn fault.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think certain attacks should have commitment, though. I don't think you should be able to cancel out at every point of an attack.
Yeah, heavier attacks wouldn't have it, but the lighter stuff definitely would. Since I feel that monk should be a death by 1,000 cuts kind of kit.
Mm-hmm. I can see it.
So, as far as comparing the rushdown of monk to the rushdown of gunbreaker, Gunbreaker is rushdown in bursts,
and it's pushing them around too, mm-hmm. So you can use it to set up other things.
So it'd be better to say that monk is a pure rushdown.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, so then there's ninja, and it sounded like you had something in mind when it came to ninja.
So ninja is going to be our unorthodox ambusher. Like a real ninja should be. The way ninja played in Explorers was not exactly what you would expect. They had access to all katana skills, which was kind of weird considering we had samurai. And they were a tank. They were a dodge tank, just like in 11. Because they had Utsutsemi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think they should still have Utsutsemi. I think it should be part of their kit, and that they can if they can pull it off in a split second, it's like a split second dodge.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a wider window that just lets you avoid damage, but if you do a perfect Utsutsemi, you get a counter attack window. But I also think they should be able to run on walls. Just like straight up, you can, if you're on the floor and you're near a wall, you can just jump up onto the wall and keep running.
And run on water.
Yes, but that should be a later ability.
Oh.
Like straight up, just have them, and that allows them to pull off certain combo starters that they don't have on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It also allows them to jump off towards another wall if they want to.
Yeah.
I want them to be our abnormal ambushers, as I want to call them.
And given that, I'd also say that I was considering having them be able to cancel into the usual ninjutsu spells with their combos, but I can't think of a way to integrate that, so I'm dropping that.
I don't think that they should cancel in. I think that certain smaller ninjutsu we've seen throughout the series, not the big ones, but some of the smaller stuff, is just an attack.
Mm-hmm.
You know how with certain Dissidia characters, they could just they go with a few sword or weapon attacks and then they end with a small cast.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we're talking Onion Knight, you can go straight into fucking flare. Fucking Onion Knights.
Yeah.
But something like that. Like they're slashing around. Maybe one of the skills that is one of the ninjutsu attacks is a combo that has to come off the wall for that specific attack.
Yeah. Now, as far as Paladin, there'd be the tricky thing of how do you make it so that Paladin isn't dipping into the toes of Knight?
Well, for one, they had cover in Explorers,
Mhm.
and it literally protected all allies in the field from damage, but it was more like a barrier. They were also the anti-status. They made sure that people didn't get status effects.
I would say Paladin would be more of a pure tank, as opposed to the counter tank that Knight is.
Yes, I still think it should get holy skills though.
Still get
It should have
holy
it should have
skills.
and should have really cool laser blades and stuff because light sword.
Mm-hmm.
But its whole thing is going to be. I think it should have two forms of cover. I think it should have the form it has in Explorers 1, which is a barrier that just protects everybody. And then the other is instant cover. It's going to be something A, you have to equip, and B, you have to be very aware of your surroundings for, because it's going to be something that allows you to, at the moment an ally would get hit, move in the way and parry the attack. Well, block the attack, excuse me.
Yeah. The only thing that'd be tricky about that is how that.
How far?
Not how far, but how that's gonna play out when not playing multiplayer.
That ability would probably not be available.
Unless you do an idea of you if you're playing solo, you're not playing solo. You have bot companions.
You could, but I don't think that that's necessary. You're basically now invoking the trust system from 14. I don't necessarily think that that's something you need for this game. I think it would be a multiplayer only ability, and there is precedent for this type of thing. Life powders and dust of life are only useful in multiplayer. Monster Hunter, you literally have no reason to make life powder or dust of life for single player, straight up.
All right.
Or any of the other powders for that matter, except for maybe antidote powder because it's just faster than antidotes, but that's a different thing.
So with Ranger, since they're already the king of status ailments, that's one approach that can be done. I do think Rangers should have a good amount of anti-air.
Absolutely. The big thing is that Rangers also do a lot of critical damage.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of their attacks, and they should have a set of close range attacks. Maybe using a very big arrow from their very big bow, kind of like the melee attack in World. That was more useful than the bow in the demo. I won't get into that particular hilarity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, their attack chains can inflict statuses. I think that if they get a long enough attack chain, or they do the right type of attack chain, it should do a critical hit that does some sort of knockdown or stun, or even just more damage to a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of their stuff should have anti-air abilities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So next would be Red Mage.
Redum. Yep.
Red Mage has always been the jack of all trades.
Well, been the jack of trades when it comes to magic casters with a little bit of close range battle.
Yeah.
The big thing with Red Mage, especially in Explorers, is they don't just get white and black, they also got time magic.
Mm-hmm.
They had the ability to reduce casting time for all of their magic abilities because of Chain Spell. And their other ability that was really fun to play with, increased damage of abilities, so magic and other types of abilities, inverse to the amount of AP that the Red Mage had at the time. So the lower your AP, the more damage you were doing. So you wanted to constantly be at low AP, but not out of it, so that you couldn't use any of your stuff.
Yeah. I would say that their particular spells take two forms, either the ranged casty, or enchanting spells onto their melee weapon.
That's more Magic Knight, though.
Yeah, there isn't a Magic Knight in the list.
I know, Um,
And red mages have dipped into the Magic Knight concept in the past. So
in
there
like
is a precedent.
one game. In like one game, but you are correct.
I am technically correct.
The best kind of correct.
Um,
But what I was more thinking is what we. I was actually thinking that we'd make a character action version of how they kind of play in 14. They go the whole jumping in, jumping out to get the fencing moves in, jumping out to do their magic type stuff. But we make that more character action.
so would you have it that they would you have it that they build up the ability to boost their magic with their melee attacks?
Yeah, I think that would be a good incentive to get in close into the risky zone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move out either if you just don't want to take the pressure anymore, or if you want to use your biggest spells, because those are going to be some pretty big spells.
Yeah.
I also think that they should still be able to cast spells faster, but that they should not be strongest casters compared to the actual other mage classes.
I was gonna say they shouldn't have the AoE kind of spells.
They shouldn't have the strongest AoEs, sure. They should still have some AoE, just not huge, massive Years of Firaga AoE.
Yeah. But when it comes to the Sage, who is basically doing more of Red Mage multiple types of spell kind of thing, just with the fighter equipment.
Let me look at Sage here real quick. So Sage uses the highest magical spells. I know what this should be, because we don't have an equivalent in the magic side.
What?
This is the heavy charge attack user of magic.
So they can use a variety of spells, but more importantly, they can charge it the way, say, our Beastmaster can charge its heavy attacks.
Yes. And the reason for that is the Sage is all about the high ultimate level magic in Explorers 1. And the best way to emulate that in like full on character action is, sure, if you're in close and you don't have the time to charge, you can cast your fires and fires and just get in some small hits. But if you manage to, say, divert the attention, or there's just an opening, you then charge your big one for a fucking Ultima or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That is what the Sage should be. Or if you're really good at positioning, like every great sworder should be, you just charge up your attacks with positioning in mind, and well, throw all your ultimate spells all the time.
Yeah. Let's see. Next would be Samurai, and the answer to Samurai is simple: just steal from Longsword.
Hold on. I mean, you're not wrong. Samurai is just longsword, except you don't trip your friends.
Yeah.
Oh, and EI is chargeable. Oh wait, no, we got chargeable EI in fucking Sunbreak. What do you mean you got chargeable EI? Anybody ever done Sacred Sheath? Yes? Okay, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But now we get to Thief.
Mm-hmm. Although I will note retroactively, if I'm doing that with if I'm doing Longsword with Samurai, I'm doing Demon mode with Ninja.
You're gonna dual blades the ninja.
Yes. Ninja's big gimmick throughout several games is they can wield 2 weapons.
I will agree with you on one caveat.
What?
The way you have to build up demon mode is through ninjutsu spells specifically, which means you're gonna have to do a lot of your bouncing to throw out your ninjutsus.
I'd be fine with that, and throw in one further caveat. Demon mode doesn't drain AP per se. It drains resonance.
Ooh. Okay, I can see that. That's a time attack if I ever heard one.
Mm-hmm. Since demon mode is meant to be used in bursts.
Yes.
You know.
Even though everybody uses them to the detriment of all of their stamina ever. Every dual blader.
Mm-hmm. Is this a bad time to mention that our buddy Alm has dual blade brain rot?
Yes, it is a bad time to mention that because now I'm going to bully the fuck out of him.
Well, he does because every time I see him play Monster Hunter, he's always playing speed or any similar game. He's always going for Speedy Boys.
Mm-hmm.
So, but with Thief, I honestly think that it would be hard to utilize something like Steel in a character action setup without double dipping into the Z knuckle.
Well, no, and we already have that with the Blue Mage.
Mm-hmm.
No, what I'm thinking, Monk, is one, a passive ability that makes it so monster drops will A, be rarer, and B, there will be more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, Steel is a thing you can build up as part of your combo, and if it's at the end of your combo, it's essentially Mug, not Steel, but
Mug I'm more willing to work with.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just Steel. You're attacking to build up your Steel percentage, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, you can just run up to a monster, hit Steel, and see if you take anything. But, nah.
I also think that they should have some sort of anti-aggro. Not full-on stealth mode, but a way to quickly kill off the aggro that they have. Yeah,
an aggro purge. I know what you're talking about. That would be fine. I mean, the ninja technically gets one as well because, well, Utsutsemi is an instant dodge, and of course there are ninjutsu that can smoke bomb you.
Either that or some sort of passive that drains resonance, but also reduces aggro. So long as
I don't think we need more than one class that's eating resonance.
Mm-hmm.
Especially considering how important resonance is to party play.
Yeah. So given that, then I'm perfectly fine with that. The other thing is, I think that so long as they're not the target of aggro, they end up doing more damage. Basically, a way to integrate sneak attack.
Yeah, absolutely. What I think is also on top of that is they are a lot of Dante's ground-based trickster set, so that they have that ground-based dodgy.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, with Steel, which is essentially Mug, if you just try to base Steel, it does better if the monster hasn't noticed you, or if you don't have aggro, but it'll do even better the more attacks you've hit the monster with, and if you've done enough damage, the percentage goes higher and higher, and your Mug will do better. I think that Mug should have its highest chance, however, if you have primary aggro.
Yeah.
That way you have this risk versus reward loop of go in, hit the monster, try and steal stuff, see if you get anything. If not, take aggro for yourself for that split second of Mug, get what you're getting, purge your aggro, and get out there while the getting's good.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Obviously, in single player gameplay, this is going to mean that Mug is going to have its highest incidences of success. But I think that's a good trade off for single player gameplay to get mats faster, so you can get into your other classes. So,
but Then there's Time Mage.
Mhm.
I think one easy thing that can be done is Time Mage having AoEs that increase or slow down movement.
Yes, I also want to take a couple of leafs out of a different game entirely, Monk.
What do you have in mind?
My name is Joe, Beautiful Joe.
I am perfectly fine with that.
Because if you sped up, you could hit a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
but if you slowed down, you'd do more damage. Did you know that you could do both?
Yes.
I fucking loved that.
Um,
That was my favorite thing to do. Is if I've got a boss in their vulnerability loop, I fucking love just holding down both buttons and bam 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 with huge amounts of damage.
Yeah. In the same vein, using things like gravity to either prevent any jumping, or in some case ground flying enemies, or reverse gravity and give you moon gravity in certain AoEs.
Or even flight. Yeah, I think at that point, what the Time Mage is going to be is the king of battlefield fuckery. And some people may say, well, how does that differ from the Geomancer? I'm like, well, the Geomancer's terrain fuckery. This is the guy who fucks with the state of the battlefield to disadvantage enemies and advantage allies.
And
just imagine throwing a Time Mage into a party of 3 other Dragoons.
in that same vein, I think the traversal option is that they always float. They always their fall rate is cut in like a quarter,
They all float down here.
which means they have more time for airborne spells, and once again makes a Dragoon Time Mage combo interesting.
Yeah. And obviously we still have to include Comet and Meteor from a Time Mage. I think that those should be like Comet is something you can do fairly easily, but if you're going to do Meteor, it's going to require you to have overlapping battlefield effects.
Yes.
Like you'd have to overlap Slow Time and Graviga in order to even pull down a meteor, basically. And you'd cast Comet through it, and that turns the Comet into a meteor. So you'd have a little battlefield setup to get stuff done, and then you'd be like, Meteor, motherfucker!
Mm-hmm. I also think they should get some sort of spell that's a position switch. Literally.
You just want them to teleport to where the enemy is. You just want Cold Steel. You just want Cold Steel.
That's not what nope. I mean position switch literally.
Yes, switching positions literally means one person is where they were and they're where that person was.
Yes.
That's still mostly Cold Steel.
And barring that thinking with portals, if we can get away with it. Like you said, the Time Mage should be the master of battlefield
fuckery. I also had a really fun idea that if you had a range of haste, a field of hasted time, and you shot Comet through it, it becomes a bunch of tiny machine gun rocks.
I'd be fine with that.
Hey, I said I was pulling from Beautiful Joe for a reason.
Mm-hmm. But
yeah, I think Time Mage that sounds fun. I like Time Mage.
But next is White Mage.
White Mage.
And obviously the healing and support stuff, that's a given. But I do think some combat capacity should be given to White Mage. There is the possibility of leaning into what 14 did, where they gave them like stone and arrow.
No, I think White Mage for their combat should have personal area denial. Everything centers on them, keeps shit away from them, so they can continue to throw out heals when necessary.
Given that this might be a bit of a bold move, but let's steal the barrier stuff that the Sage has in FF14.
Um. Hmm. What I was more thinking was that as part of the attacks, they all center on the white mage and it's spread out from them. And they're all light based spells, like just
So laser circus.
laser circus. Yes, and I think that there should be, especially since there are going to be people who would play single player. I think that there should be the switching between stances that 14 used to have with cleric stance. Except cleric stance is what you use for healing. If you switch out of cleric stance, you're going to lose all but the most basic healing spells so that you really can become Jehuti. I think White Mage deserves a stance switch timed. I don't think it should be a permanent thing. A timed stance switch that turns you into Laser Circus for all.
Until I can come up with a better name, I'm calling that Chaplain stance.
No, Monk. Monk, I have better names for both stances. We have Saint stance for healing. We have Pope stance for death dealing. You're either a saint or a pope. Go for it, bro.
Inquisitor, because no one expects that.
I have to give you that one. I can't boo you even though I want to. I have to give you that one.
Yeah.
Fine. Saint and Inquisitor. There we go.
Yeah. But obviously
I would say Pope stance because of the whole Pope's blessing beam at the Vatican.
Yeah. Obviously, when it comes to quests, I'm perfectly fine with keeping the star rating, and I would actually say that things take two forms when it comes to quests. On one form, you have the patrol quests. These would be akin to the patrol areas in Destiny. The key with it is that you're trying to deal with lesser monsters and gather supplies in a certain amount of time. Once the timer's up, the mission's cleared. And the timer is usually, like, say, 3 minutes.
I can see that.
You essentially, and the reason to have this kind of thing is twofold. One, to have a lighter, more casual type of mission, and two, to allow for a bit of an active training ground to get used to your kit. Then you have the hunt missions, which work in the traditional sense. You're looking for one particular type of monster. Once you've taken that out, then the hunt is done. I do think the importance of secondary marks should be there for the completionists. Not necessarily hunt this monster and also others, but the equivalent of a mastery challenge or achievements. Basically, if you can hunt it with style, you will get a better benefit. You'll get additional side benefits, is what I meant. I do think that that when it comes to the Eidolons, in order to even use their ability, you need to defeat them first.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's always a good staple for earning Eidolons in certain Final Fantasy games.
And you know how we mentioned we wanted to do the whole super job kind of thing?
Yeah.
I think that can be carried into that same concept, but instead of a boss fight against something like an Eidolon, it's more of an advancement fight against the instructor of a particular job.
I can see that. What I want to counter with is trance should always be accessible from the get-go, and it gives you some buffs and boosts. Excuse me. And also the health regeneration that tends to come with that type of super mode in character action games.
Yeah.
and that what these mastery tests against the instructors do is give you the whole, you now have every feature of the job active all at once thing.
Yeah. Because I do, the purpose of it is to have kind of have kind of that ultimate test.
Yep. Make sure you've perceived the whole class as well as you can.
Yeah. Something that I've seen some people refer to in character action games as the Virgil effect, about how Virgil, especially in Devil May Cry 3, it was meant to be a test to see how well you had mastered the game's mechanics.
Yeah. And not only that, your reward for getting all those mechanics right was usually having Virgil, so that you could master a new set of mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as well as having those patrol missions and hunt missions, Monk, going out in the field should just be a thing you can naturally do, and go and fight monsters and pick up materials just to get them. Kind of like the how the expedition missions used to work.
Yeah, I just think that the patrol, I'd say, would be a middle ground between expeditions and hunts. You can always go on expeditions on your own, but to get better rewards, you'd have to do the patrol missions.
I can see what you're saying. What I guess I'm going to use Rise as the reference here.
Mm-hmm.
You have I think they're called gathering missions still, that tell you, hey, go get 10 cobalt ore, etc., etc., etc. But you could always just go out in the map, stay as long as you want in the map, hunt as much as you wanted in the map, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be an option for that. Except since we've got the whole chalice, crystal, or whatever idea, it's just for however long the maximum time on your chalice is.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, they'd probably have it that the head of the Explorers Guild has it hard coded with the crystal that you have, that it automatically teleports you to the town's crystal when you're out of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I do still think that there's still a different tier between hunt missions that would be out in the open and the ones that are in caves. Basically the difficulty tier is essentially the mist level, which determines not just difficulty of monsters, but also probability of mutations, as well as rewards.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
What we were saying about mist settling in places like low valleys and caves was just a spitballing.
Yeah.
What you're describing it more as now is the arena type fights for very special monsters in Monster Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Like the arena at the end of Rise where you fight both Ibushi and Narwa.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I fucking love that fight. By the way, that fight is fucked, and also great. I think that those missions are a special type of hunt mission, for one, just like they were in the Monster Hunter games, and for two, I think you should be able to go back to those arenas to dig through and find stuff if you can.
Yes. Now, I should note I would not try and construct this as a fully interconnected open world. I would have it separated into arenas.
Yeah, the mission states. Because that's the type of game we're going for here.
And the big reason to do that is to save on resources. Having a full persistent open world takes a lot of resources.
Yeah, I don't know what Wilds is going to look like when we get it. I hope it's optimized well.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, it's going to be a gamble when it comes to how open world it is, especially since, as we've talked about in the past, the the whole full open worlds concept has been soured on over the last few years, largely because of Ubisoft overusing it and using it poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've seen with Ghost of Tsushima that the open world concept can be used properly. Admittedly, part of the reason that Ghost of Tsushima was able to use it properly is because it isn't relying so much on fast travel.
Well, you can't fast travel to places you haven't been to, and on top of that, you can't just clear huge swaths of the map by climbing towers. In fact, the best way to clear a map is to liberate more of the taken towns. In fact, when you liberate all of the towns in one of the areas, it uncovers the fog of war on the entire map.
It's just that liberating a town is a challenge.
Every time, and I fucking love it.
And
But
you can go in guns blazing with liberating towns, but only idiots do that.
Or people who have the Sakai armor because it gives them a 5-kill fucking kill streak during those callouts. And is really good for fighting in general. But that's just me.
When it comes to the when it comes to the Eidolons, I can't think of any that were used that I'd want to drop, especially since there's some that were used that don't.
You mean like the fact that they had Amaterasu, Dryad, and Fenrir?
And Omega.
I don't think that counts because you don't technically have it. I really like Amaterasu in Explorers though.
And there's with some of them, I can see what the terrain effects would be. You know, with Alexander, you can have bits of castle coming out of the ground in random spots. With Amaterasu, the swords falling from the sky.
Yep.
And those swords can be used as a launching point for certain classes. With Bahamut, he's carpet bombing with breath weapons. But I don't. With Diablos, I'd say areas of darkness. Actually, no, not areas of darkness, just random gravity. I forgot. I'm conflating their Diablos with ours, or Diabolos. Sorry.
I mean,
see, Dryad is pretty obvious. You know, the flowers that generate buffs or debuffs.
Nope.
Ifrit is very obvious. Everything is burning. I'd say Fenrir. Probably some charging attacks in various directions.
But we get, I don't think we need to go into every summon.
Yeah.
Most of them are fairly obvious.
I do think it'd be really funny for Gilgamesh to show up and randomly help you. It's just that sometimes his help is really useful and other times it's completely useless.
Gotta have a Gilgamesh.
I.e. the whole, is he gonna draw Excalibur or Excalibur?
Actually, hold on. I didn't say that in the right voice, Monk. Gotta have the Gilgamesh. That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
For those who don't get it, you haven't watched Homestar Runner.
But I think with this, we have a nice setup, and now obviously there's things that can be filled in, like certain cast members. Obviously, we need to have a Sid. I'd actually say Sid should be the one heading the Explorers Guild, because the premise for this kind of thing is very simple. You have this frontier town out on the borderlands. The explorer is just coming in. Like they're coming in, but to stake whatever claim they have on the frontier, but they are at the bottom of the barrel. Because you could easily have the gag of, wait, you forgot your explorer's license? Well, you got to start at the bottom then.
Have fun.
I know it'd be a cliche to say that they washed on shore. I'm not doing that. I would rather do the whole thing of they came in on caravan or something.
Is it bad that I have an idea for two SIDS instead?
What did you have in mind?
Two SIDS, one body. He's been partially corrupted by whatever's corrupting the world with the mist.
Oh.
And so he actively works to help you because he wants the frontier town to succeed. But then there are things he sets up because of the evil side. And eventually you have to find a way to either purify him or kill him. And that's a story choice.
I want to say the evil side is using the name Garland as a cover.
I wanted to go with the more obvious name, but I don't think I will.
Because you enjoy being knocked down by Garland?
No, because I didn't want him to be a big swinging King Deke.
Fair.
I am 12, and what is this?
Yeah.
Dragon says, Bakura! No, this is not Bakura.
I think this is not that or Zork Necrophates.
But yeah, I think we've got a good outline for an Explorers 2 if there ever was one. And no, Explorers Force doesn't count. You can all suck my left nut.
Yeah, I never considered that as counting. But I would say that is going to do it for this fairly interesting affair on GeekWatch. We will be back here. We will be back here next week. And when the time comes, with the usual schedule will commence. I'm not going to be doing any game streaming for a while because there's some organizing I need to do first, and that's going to take a few days. Just something I should have taken care of earlier when it came to the game library setup that I have. I had to do a bit of reinstalling, so that's all out of whack, Zan.
Yeah,
and
I understand.
My OCD will not let me let that slip.
Yeah, no, I understand.
That being said, I will note a few things. Obviously, I'm doing the interview that I had planned for last week, but had to push forward a week due to schedule issues. And on Tuesday, Zan and I will be guesting for the Flux Fantasy guys. They want to bring us on for their weekly showcase.
Yay!
I don't know when that will go. I don't know when that will go live or when the VOD will go live. When it does, I will post a link to that in my usual social medias and on the Discord. So
you know me, I'll be spreading the word everywhere as the evangelist.
Mm-hmm. I haven't entirely gotten it nailed down whether or not they are live recording it within their Discord or if it's a different setup. If they record it and then upload it after the fact.
Whichever they do, I'll still spread it around.
Yeah, I do know that a form of it will be out in the open. It's just, I don't know what form that's going to take right now.
Yeet.
So, please look forward to all of that. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk, and join the watch.
Soy, yo la cuna, yo, yo,